together with Chris Mercer. And the album from which Patti is playing the works today is released by Sideman Records by us. And Patti asked me to say a few words during this concert while she has to reset the stage and sort of play the mantra through this performance tonight. And the first thing we just heard, the first piece is by Masteller, BowMuSTUCKMoBue. And Brad is a former student at Northwestern University, where both Chris and I teach. And this piece was an interesting sort of study on interactivity. The performer has a score that reacts by analogous to the sounds she creates, and she picks instruments. And just to give you a little hint to the title, it actually refers to the action the percussionist does. So it means to bow, muting, struck, mute, and bow. So one of the pieces that really refers to the activity of the performer. The second piece we're going to hear now is Gene Pritsker's Melting Pot, and it's a piece for Ghatam, an Indian clay pot, as you can see, and Samplestra is what Pritzker calls his pre-recorded electronics samples. And it's probably the piece on the program that is most concerned about language, about music as something that speaks, and you will hear different voices from different cultures and different historic periods interacting with the percussionist and the percussionist reacting to those. Look forward to this. next piece you will hear is David Durant's Shadow of the Hawk for solo vibraphone and electronics. And the electronics are a kind of marimba type instrument, as Durant calls it, built primarily on a sample of a PVC pipe. And I want to read a short quote from his notes about the piece to you. The vibraphone part represents the hawk, which is defined and moves linearly, while the shadow is all the other elements in this piece, which are sometimes clear, sometimes diffuse, but always moving and changing. It's one of several pieces inspired by nature on this program, and I hope you enjoy the Shadow of the Hawk. The next piece we'll hear, Jeff Herriott's The Stillness at Rose Lake in Winter, is another piece inspired by nature in a much quieter and softer way than this one. Jeff Herriott teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater and was inspired for this piece by his walks between two nature preserves. And I would like to read a brief excerpt from his program notes. Though originally I had more eclectic ideas in mind, the daily walks at Rose Lake focused my thoughts on the beauty of repetition and repetitive action, as well as a solace in simplicity. To mirror my own experience, I composed the piece using overlapping pitch and rhythm series to create repeated but varied musical gestures with frozen pauses for reflection. The Stillness of Rose Lake in Winter is, as many of the pieces tonight, dedicated to and written for Patti Cudd. So enjoy it. the following piece, found in translation, is by Mercer for electronics and percussion. And Chris was willing to say a very few words himself after he has moved the computer and the equipment. So whenever you're ready, Chris, maybe
Yes.
you can say a few things.
Well, maybe while we're doing this, yeah. So the translation involved is that this piece uses an audio score instead of a notated score. And it's an algorithmic audio score, which means it's a little different every time. And the idea is that she listens through headphones to a synthetic kind of algorithmic percussion piece, and she imitates it. But since it's different every time, she can never fully learn it. So she's kind of translating. I always thought of like a person translating in real time from a foreign language. And then we take the material from that she plays as she imitates the score, and then that gets processed in real time to generate the electronics. So the electronics are all real-time synthesis, using some algorithms similar to the ones that generate the score she's listening to.
Do we hear we hear what she's hearing?
You won't hear what she's hearing. Well, you'll hear her play something like what she's hearing. The funny part is she's played the piece enough by now that we had a little glitch in one of the sections, and she was prepared to just fake it. We got it fixed. And she knows the piece well enough that it's like, I think I could just do what that part does, you know?
It was like my favorite part of the piece.
We fixed it. It's
Yeah. So I asked these guys to talk about the pieces while I set things up. I'm used to playing notes, playing the notes that are composed, and so when it comes to pressing buttons and making sure that I have the right pedals, I was a little nervous about that, and hoping that I wouldn't forget something.
The next piece you will hear tonight is Paul Elwood's Thing from 2018. And it's, as Gene Pritzker's piece, another composition that features the human voice. This time, though, with samples triggered by the percussionist. And we hear voices recorded text by Heidegger, René Descartes, the artist Henri Matisse, and also by the composer himself, paraphrasing Heidegger. We will also hear a voice from NASA saying there is now 4 computers that have control of primary critical functions. And it's clearly a piece that connects the live performance with the music we hear from the tape. Before we get to that, though, I also want to give a short chance to hear a little bit more about Patti Cudd, the performer tonight. Patti is one of the leading percussionists of new music in the country. She received her PhD from UCSD, clearly a center for contemporary music, and is now based in Minneapolis, where she plays at Zeitgeist Ensemble. She worked with many of the leading composers, from Brian Ferneyhough to Julia Wolf to, Morton Feldman. Sorry.
John Zorn.
The list is so long, I don't even know where to start. And I'm really glad we have you here tonight. Maybe you have a chance for 1 or 2 questions also to ask you.
Sure.
We heard now all these, several of these pieces, and we'll hear 2 more. I think all of the composers on the program you work with, I find it interesting also when we see the setup. It's quite an advanced sort of stage of percussion playing with technology, with all contemporary pieces. Could you say a few words how you got as a percussionist into this sort of contemporary music? I'm curious.
I mean, I've always had a love for contemporary music. It started with, I went to a small school, University of Wisconsin, River Falls, which has actually come full circle, I guess you could say, in my life. I now teach there. And as an undergrad, I didn't realize, here's our small school. We have this commissioning program. It's still going strong, and I help to run that. But it's going for 55 years. And we've brought in leading composers from all over. We brought in John Cage. My first commission that I was ever a part of was with Morton Feldman. My last one that I was a part of as a student, it was John Zorn. And so we're all over the place. And I remember I didn't understand when I first came in as a freshman, and we had Harold, I think it was Harold Budd, that had come in, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand this. And then like a month later, we had John Cage come in, and he was just on a tour with Zeitgeist and some of the faculty members. And I remember hearing Bacchanal and his prepared piano piece. I was absolutely hooked. And from then on, I just continued. I went to school at SUNY Buffalo, where I worked with Jan Williams, who was a leader also in contemporary percussion performing. And so he kind of got into our brains that we needed to commission pieces and get that out there for the percussion world. And so actually, all of the pieces here on my CD that I'm performing today, they're all pieces that I've commissioned, and I've worked with the composers to put these pieces together.
And then maybe one more question was, this is all the pieces now from the CD that you have?
Almost all, yeah.
Almost all, yeah. What's up next? What are you planning on? What are you working on?
I'm actually working on the one thing, and I'm embarrassed about as a woman percussionist, the one thing that I haven't commissioned a lot of pieces by female composers. And so the next work that I'm putting together, the next CD that I'd like to do, is of women in electronic music. And I just worked on a piece with Meg Shadell, a 40-minute piece that we recorded actually at the beginning of last week. And so my goal, I have pieces that I'm commissioning and I'm working on now. And so that's my next goal.
Great. All right. Thank you then.
Is nothing. If there is a word for nothing, then nothing is something. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding,
Apropos of nothing, I have wanted always to put forth a reasoned and self-determined individuality within a total awareness of tradition.
No, sing.
Where
Can
we discove?
No, sing.
If we are to find some,
Sing. Should.
we not
No.
it
Exists.
where will we search?
No, sing.
Where
Can
we discove?
No, sing.
If we are to find some,
Sing. Should.
we not
No.
it
Exists.
where will we search?
No, sing.
Where
Can
we discove?
No, sing.
If we are to find some,
Sing. Should.
we not
No.
it
Exists.
If nothing is to be explored thoroughly, nothing must be given varnish. We must comprehend psychologically.
Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
piece, Philip Blackburn's Melody, we have the pleasure to have Philip Blackburn here today, a composer based in Minneapolis, and he is willing to say a few words himself about his piece. So thank you.
Thank you, Hans, and everybody else. Isn't it nice to hear live music again? Weird. All those frequencies in space. Yeah, I'm Philip Blackburn, the composer of the next piece, and it's kind of three pieces in one. It started because of my interest in BowMuSTUCK, which is kind of the connection of music and nature and the nature of music and all of that. And in this case, I've invented some wind harps, which are playing in my backyard right now in St. Paul. When the wind passes over the fishing line, it gets amplified by cat food can resonators, and it makes these really weird tones. So I can predict the weather from my own bed. And sometimes I put contact mics on them and say, oh, that's a cool recording. I'll use that one day. And then I had the idea of, well, what could I write for Patti? And wouldn't it be nice, because I'm kind of skeptical since all my Harry Patch studies over the years, of equal temperament. What happens if you would superimpose these pure tuning, whatever sounds are happening from the wind, with the equal temperament of the vibraphone? If you actually superimpose them, kind of like Chris's idea of telling Patti, play what you hear, only in this case, not being very good at ear training, I used a computer to translate those tones into an approximation and then spat that out as a score and told Patti to play it. So Patti has to, the learning curve of this was very, very steep. Yeah. But she has to play exactly what you're listening to on the tape, and hopefully, if they're totally in sync, coming out of these speakers, they're setting up ripple patterns and interferences that make every tone sound different. It's got its own kind of perfume. And the third aspect of this came along later, and it was when I was in Nicaragua this spring, and I saw all those geothermal bubblings of the hot mud coming up out of the earth near a volcano. And I thought, there's 12 minutes of video in this. So you can watch it if you like. That's called Song of the Earth, after another Song of the Earth. Or you can just close your eyes, listen to Patti and the wind harps, and chill out. It's going to do something weird to your theta activity of your brain cells. And just finally, these are the words I put together for the video version. This is the field where the Earth's core breaks surface, where energetic forces conspire, where the churn and eddies become waves and a torrent, where rhythm and flow are born, where geopower creates emergent music.